The Harrington estate sat on 12 acres of land in Connecticut, and it was the kind of place that made people slow their cars down just to look at it through the iron gates. For stories of white stone, perfectly trimmed hedges, a fountain in the front that ran even in winter. From the outside, it looked like a painting, something you would see in a magazine and think, nobody actually lives there. But somebody did live there. Damien Harrington was 34 years old, and he was the kind of rich that most people couldn't even imagine. Not just nice car rich or big house rich. He owns 3 companies and a private jet rich. He had built his first tech company at 22, sold it at 26, and used that money to build 2 more. His face had been on the cover of Forbes. His name was mentioned in the same sentence as Musk and Bezos in business articles. He had everything the world said a person should want. But the house was very, very quiet. Damien lived alone. He had a small staff, a cook named Gerald who came 3 days a week, a groundskeeper named Pete who kept the outside beautiful, and a cleaning staff that rotated. For the past 8 months, Monday through Friday, the person who cleaned the inside of his home was a woman named Rosa Mendez. Rosa was 29 years old. She was small, barely 5'2". With dark hair she always kept pulled back in a bun, and hands that were always moving. She was the kind of person who noticed things. If a picture frame was crooked, she straightened it. If a throw pillow was on the floor, she put it back. She took care of the mansion the way some people take care of things they love, even though it wasn't hers. She cleaned it like it mattered. And she needed this job more than anyone knew. Rosa had a daughter named Lily, 3 years old, with big brown eyes and 2 pigtails and a laugh that sounded like little bells. Lily was the whole world. She was everything Rosa worked for, everything she got up early for, everything she stayed strong for. But Lily had been sick 6 months ago, a serious respiratory infection that had landed her in the hospital for 11 days. The bills had piled up the way bills do when you don't have savings and your insurance doesn't cover everything. Rosa was still paying them off. She worked 6 days a week now, cleaning other houses on Saturdays too, and she sent money to her mother, who watched Lily during the day. She never complained. Not once. Not to anyone. Damien Harrington barely knew she existed. That wasn't cruelty. It was just his life. He left the house early and came home late. Sometimes he didn't come home at all, sleeping in his office downtown during crunch periods. When he was home, he was on calls on his laptop in meetings through his earpiece. The house got clean. He didn't think much about how. But that was about to change. It started on a Tuesday in November. The air had turned cold fast that year, and the heat hadn't quite caught up to it yet. Rosa arrived at 7 in the morning like always, let herself in with her key code, and started on the east wing. She was moving a heavy antique armchair to vacuum underneath it when her phone buzzed. She looked at the screen and felt her heart drop. It was her mother. Lily is crying and won't stop. She's asking for you. She sounds scared. Rosa closed her eyes for just a second. Then she typed back. Tell her mama loves her. I'll call in 10 minutes. She put the phone in her pocket and kept working. Because that was what she did. She kept working. What she didn't know was that Damien Harrington was home that morning. He had slept in, something he almost never did, because he'd been up until 4 in the morning finishing a deal that had taken 3 months to close. He came downstairs in a gray t-shirt and sweatpants, heading for the kitchen, and he stopped in the doorway of the East Wing hallway. He saw Rosa. She had put the armchair back and was now vacuuming, and she was doing it with her phone pressed between her ear and her shoulder, talking quietly. He couldn't hear the words over the vacuum, but he could see her face. He had never really looked at her face before. She was trying not to cry. Her jaw was tight, and her eyes were wet, and she was moving the vacuum with one hand and pressing her phone against her ear with the other, and still doing her job. Damien stood very still. He had seen a lot of things in his 34 years. He had been in boardrooms during hostile takeovers. He had watched grown men lose their tempers and cry during negotiations. He had sat across from people who were desperate and people who were furious and people who were hiding both. He was good at reading people. It was one of the things that made him successful. What he saw on Rosa's face right now wasn't desperation or anger. It was something quieter and harder. It was the face of someone who had no choice but to hold it together and who was doing it and who was tired but who was still going. He went to the kitchen and made his coffee. He sat at the counter. He stared at the marble and thought about things he hadn't thought about in a long time. When Rosa finished the call, she wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, straightened up, and went right back to vacuuming. She had no idea he had seen her. But something had shifted in that big, quiet house. Something small but important had cracked open. A man who had been living inside numbers and deals and strategy for years had just seen something real. A woman holding herself together with both hands, for a little girl he didn't even know existed yet. He didn't say anything that day, but he started paying attention. Damien started noticing things he had never noticed before. It happened the way awareness usually happens, slowly at first, and then all at once. Once he had really seen Rosa that Tuesday morning, he couldn't unsee her. She was there every weekday, quiet and steady, and now that he was paying attention, he realized how much she did. Not just the cleaning, though the house was immaculate in a way he had taken for granted, but the small things. She refilled his coffee station when it ran low, even though that wasn't her job. She put fresh flowers in the front hallway on Fridays, little bundles she brought from somewhere, white and yellow ones that made the whole entrance smell alive. She fixed things without being asked. Once, he noticed a loose cabinet hinge in the kitchen had been tightened. Another time, the bathroom mirror in the guest suite that had been slightly crooked for 2 years was suddenly straight. She did all of this without saying a word about it. Damien began coming down later in the mornings. He told himself it was because he was tired after the deal closed. But really he was watching. Not in a strange way, in the way a person watches someone they are trying to understand. He would sit at the kitchen counter with his laptop and his coffee, and Rosa would work around him, and slowly, they began to talk. It started with small things. She asked if he wanted her to move the stack of boxes in the study or work around them. He said she could move them. She asked if he preferred the window curtains open or closed when she cleaned. She had been leaving them open because the natural light seemed better, but she wanted to check. He said open was fine. He liked the light. "You like the light?" she said, looking mildly surprised. "You keep all the blinds closed when you're working." He looked up from his laptop. "I do. Every single one," she said simply, and moved on to the next room. He sat there for a moment, thinking about that. Then he got up and opened the blind next to him. The November sun came in pale and cold and honest, and he sat back down and felt something he couldn't quite name. The conversations grew. The way conversations do when two people are in the same space every day, and there's nothing to fill the silence but words. He learned that she had grown up in Texas, that she had come to Connecticut 7 years ago following a relationship that didn't work out but that had given her a reason to stay. He learned that she loved old movies and that she knew the entire script of The Princess Bride by heart. He learned that she was funny, quietly, drilly funny, in a way that caught him off guard. He told her small things too. That he hated the color the interior designer had painted the upstairs hallway. That he had never actually used the massive formal dining room, not once in the 3 years he had lived there. That he had grown up in a 2-bedroom apartment in Boston with his mother and his grandmother, and that sometimes this house still felt unreal to him. She listened. She didn't make it a big deal. She just listened. It was on a Thursday, about 3 weeks after that first Tuesday, that Lily came up. Rosa was cleaning the kitchen and Damien was at the counter reviewing contracts, and her phone rang. She glanced at it and declined the call and sent a text. He wasn't trying to see, but he caught the name on the screen before she turned it over. "Mama, Lily's napping. Call when free." "Lily," he said, without thinking. Rosa looked up. She seemed surprised he had said it.
"My daughter," she said. Her voice changed when she said it.
Got softer. Fuller. "She's 3. Damien put his pen down. "I didn't know you had a daughter." "You never asked," she said, and it wasn't mean, just true. "No," he said. "I didn't. I'm sorry." Something in his voice must have been different from what she expected, because she looked at him for a moment before she answered. "Her name is Lily. She has my mother's eyes and her father's stubbornness, which is saying something because her father was the most stubborn man alive." She said it with a small smile that was tired and warm at the same time. "She talks constantly. About everything. Her favorite color changes every day. Yesterday it was the color of mud, and she was very serious about it." Damien laughed. It surprised him. He didn't laugh like that very often. She sounds like a character, he said. She's my whole world, Rosa said simply, and went back to wiping the counter. That was all.
She didn't go on about it.
She didn't share the medical bills or the hospital stay or the Saturdays she cleaned extra houses or the nights she counted dollars on her kitchen table after Lily went to sleep. She just said what was true and moved forward. But Damien sat with it. He was a man who solved problems for a living. He took broken companies and fixed them. He looked at things that weren't working and found the piece that was missing.
It was what his brain did.
It was, in a lot of ways, the only thing he knew how to do really well. And something in him, something that had been asleep for a while, had woken up. Something that was less about business and more about being a person. About seeing a person. He opened a new tab on his laptop. But he didn't open a contract. He sat quietly, thinking about a little girl named Lily, who couldn't be there with her mother during the day, who had been sick, who thought mud was a color, and who was somebody's entire world. Damien Harrington was not a man who talked about things he was planning to do. He built things in private and revealed them when they were done. It was a business habit, but it was also just who he was. He did not make promises. He delivered results. So for the next 3 weeks, he said nothing to Rosa about what was taking shape in his mind. He started with research. That was always step one. Understand the situation before you move. He asked his assistant Marcus, a meticulous 30-year-old who handled everything Damien didn't want to think about, to find out quietly what Rosa's situation actually was. Not invasively, just what was available. Her employment records through the cleaning company showed her hourly rate. Marcus found the hospital that Lily had been treated at and, through a few careful phone calls, confirmed that Rosa had an outstanding balance from a hospital stay earlier that year. The number made Damien go very still when he read it. To him, it was the cost of a business dinner. He could spend that without noticing it was gone. To Rosa, it was clearly something she had been paying off in small pieces for months, carrying it the way people carry heavy things, quietly, steadily, with no indication of how much it cost them. He paid it, anonymously, through a third party, with instructions to mark the account as settled in full and to indicate only that it had been paid by a charitable foundation. He did not want her to connect it to him. Not yet. Maybe not ever. That wasn't why he did it. Then he started on the next part. Damien had 12 rooms in his house that he did not use. Not casually underused, genuinely never entered. 3 guest bedrooms. A sitting room. A sunroom that faced the east garden. A room on the 3rd floor that had been used as a library by the previous owner and that he had filled with boxes he'd never unpacked. He stood in the doorway of that library room for a long time one evening. Then he called a contractor he trusted and said, "I need a room renovated. 3 weeks. Done right. No corners cut. I'll tell you what I want, and you're going to think I'm losing my mind." The contractor, whose name was Dennis and who had worked with Damien for years, said, "Mr. Harrington, you once had me install a rooftop kitchen in January. I won't think anything." Damien told him what he wanted. Dennis did not think he was losing his mind. Dennis, who had a 5-year-old granddaughter named Cora, thought it was the best thing he'd heard in years. While the construction was happening discreetly on the 3rd floor during hours when Rosa worked in the other wings, Damien did other research. He learned what 3-year-old girls liked. He talked to his cousin Sophie, who had 2 kids under 5 and who nearly fell off her couch when Damien called asking for advice about children. He learned about colors and characters and what made a space feel safe and magical and like it belonged to someone small. He learned about the difference between toys that entertained for a day and toys that grew with a child and sparked something that lasted. He took notes. Actual notes, in his precise handwriting, on the yellow legal pads he used for important things. He also thought about Rosa. He thought about what she actually needed, not what would feel like charity, not what would embarrass her or make her feel seen in a way that was uncomfortable. He thought about her dignity, because he had come to understand in these past weeks that her dignity was not a small thing to her. She was proud, not in an arrogant way, in a "I built this life with my own hands" way.
He respected that.
He didn't want to break it. He wanted to make it easier to carry. So he called his lawyer and his HR person and he restructured something. He fired Rosa from the cleaning company. And then he hired her directly, as a household manager, which was a real job title with a real job description, at 3 times her current salary, with full benefits including health insurance that cover dependents for weeks paid vacation, and a provision that had made his HR director blink twice, a private workspace within the estate that could accommodate a child during working hours, if needed. He told Marcus to draft the offer letter carefully, professionally, not like a gift, like a job offer, because that's what it was. He wasn't giving her charity. He was hiring someone he had come to realize was genuinely exceptional at what she did and had been grotesquely undercompensated for it. The letter went to her through the proper channels, from his company's HR department, sent to her home address. It was formal and correct, and it outlined everything plainly. At the bottom of the last page, in a section labeled Additional Note from Mr. Harrington, he had written 4 sentences in his own words, not the lawyer's. You have taken care of this house for 8 months, and I have not once told you what a difference it makes. That was an oversight on my part, and I am sorry for it. This offer stands on its own merits regardless of your answer. I hope you'll say yes. He sent it on a Friday evening. He was, for the first time in years, nervous. Rosa read the letter 4 times. The first time, she thought it was a mistake. Some kind of error. The wrong name on the right document or the right name on the wrong document. She set it on her kitchen table and looked at it from a distance like it might say something different if she gave it space. The second time, she read it slowly, word by word. The salary number made her breath catch. The benefits section made her cover her mouth with her hand. The dependent care provision made her have to put the letter down and look at the ceiling for a while. The third time, she read the note at the bottom. Damien's 4 sentences. She read them, and her eyes filled up and she let them. There was nobody to see her. Lily was asleep in her room down the hall, in the small apartment that cost Rosa most of what she made, in the neighborhood that was fine but that she had always hoped was temporary. She sat at her kitchen table for a long time. She thought about the hospital. She thought about the bills she was still paying. She thought about the Saturday houses and the tired that lived in her bones now, permanent and familiar. She thought about her mother, who was getting older and who watched Lily every weekday and never complained, but who had her own health issues that Rosa tried not to think about too much. And then she thought about Lily. Lily, who when she woke up in the morning called out Mama before she even opened her eyes. Lily, who could not say the word spaghetti correctly and called it paschetti with total confidence. Lily, who had been in that hospital bed 6 months ago with tubes in her arm, so small in that big bed, looking at Rosa with those giant brown eyes like, Mama, you'll fix this, right? You always fix things. Rosa had fixed it, and she was still paying for fixing it, and she would pay for a long time. But this letter. She called her mother. It was late, almost 11, but her mother always answered. Mija, her mother said, hearing something in Rosa's voice immediately. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong, Rosa said. And then she started crying, which she hadn't done in months, really crying, the kind that comes from somewhere deep and has been waiting. Something's right, Mama. Something's really right. The 4th time she read the letter, she got a pen and wrote yes in the margin next to the offer, and then she felt a little embarrassed and laughed at herself through her tears, and then she emailed the HR contact to formally accept. She barely slept that night. Monday morning, she arrived at the Harrington estate and Damien was already downstairs. He was at the kitchen counter. Her counter, the spot he sat in now, the one she had started thinking of as his spot, with his coffee and his laptop. He looked up when she came in. They looked at each other. I got your letter, Rosa said. I know, he said. HR told me you accepted. You said it stood on its own merits. It does. Then I need you to know I'm not taking it because I need saving, she said. It was important to her. She needed him to understand that. I know that, he said. And the way he said it, direct and without flinching, told her that he meant it. I'm taking it because you're the best at what you do, and because this house has never worked like it works now, and I should have figured that out 8 months ago. She took a breath. Okay, she said. Okay, he said. And then he said, Can you bring Lily on Wednesday? Rosa blinked. Bring her. There's something on the 3rd floor I'd like you both to see, he said. He looked almost uncomfortable, not in a bad way, but in the way people look when they've done something they care about and they're not used to caring about things. If that's all right. Rosa stared at him. What's on the third floor? Come Wednesday and find out, he said. And he looked back at his laptop, and she could see, just slightly, the corner of his mouth moving. Wednesday came slowly. Rosa told her mother to bring Lily to the estate at 10 o'clock. She didn't tell Lily anything specific, just that they were going somewhere special. Lily, who found everything either the best thing ever or very boring, had declared this the best thing ever before they even arrived, which was very Lily. Her mother drove up to the gates and Rosa buzzed them in, and Lily, strapped into her car seat, pressed her little face against the window and said, "Mama, is that a castle?" Sort of, Rosa said. Do princesses live here? Rosa thought about Damien Harrington with his legal pads and his serious face and his 4 honest sentences. No, baby. A regular person. Lily considered this. Does the regular person have a dog? I don't think so. That's sad, Lily said, very sincerely. They came inside, and Damien met them in the front hall. Rosa watched him see Lily for the first time. Lily was wearing a yellow raincoat even though it wasn't raining, because she had insisted on it, and Rosa had learned to pick her battles. She had both pigtails, slightly lopsided. She was holding a stuffed elephant named Gerald, a coincidence that Rosa had not yet had a chance to tell him about, that her daughter's beloved stuffed animal shared a name with his cook. Lily looked up at Damien Harrington. You're very tall, she said. You're very yellow, he said. Lily giggled. It was immediate and total, and it lit up the entire front hall of that big, quiet house like something had been switched on. It's my favorite color, Lily told him. Today. Damien led them up the stairs. Rosa carried Lily on her hip. Her daughter was 3 and fully capable of walking, but stairs in new places made her want to be held, and Rosa had learned that some things were worth doing just because they were comforting. She followed Damien up 1 flight, then 2, down a hallway she had never cleaned because it was always closed off, to a door at the end. He stopped in front of it. He didn't say anything for a moment. He was looking at the door. Rosa realized, watching his face, that he was nervous. Genuinely, actually nervous. The man who closed $100 million deals was standing in front of a door looking like a kid who'd made something and wasn't sure if it was good enough. It made something in Rosa's chest feel tender. I want to explain, he said, still looking at the door. I didn't do this to make you feel like you owe me something. I know that could be how it seems. I want you to know that it isn't. I know, Rosa said quietly. He looked at her then. I was thinking about what it would mean for Lily to be able to come here with you. While you work. To have a space that was hers. He paused. I had a room I wasn't using. And I had time these past few weeks to think about things I hadn't thought about in a while. About what actually matters. Rosa didn't trust her voice, so she nodded. He opened the door. The room had been completely transformed. Where there had been boxes and dust and the ghost of a library, there was now something that took Rosa's breath away and stopped it there. The walls were painted in soft, warm yellow, not a harsh yellow, but a sunrise yellow, gentle and golden. One entire wall was a mural, a meadow with wildflowers and a big friendly tree with a swing and butterflies in colors that didn't exist in real life, painted by someone who knew exactly how magic was supposed to look. There was a reading nook built into the corner, low to the ground with cushions in purple and green, and a bookshelf at child height packed with books, picture books and board books and early readers, more books than Rosa could count at a glance. There was a small table and 2 chairs, the perfect size for a 3-year-old, painted white with little flowers on the legs. There were soft rugs on the floor, the kind that felt like clouds underfoot. There were toys, but not overwhelming quantities of them. Carefully chosen things that invited imagination. Blocks in warm wood. A dollhouse that was simple and beautiful. Art supplies in a little caddy already organized. In the center of the room, hanging from the ceiling on a gold ribbon, was a sign in big painted letters. It said, Lily's room. Rosa's hand came up to cover her mouth. Lily had gone very still on her hip, which was unusual. Lily was never still. Rosa looked at her daughter's face and saw something she had never seen there before, a kind of overwhelmed wonder, like the world had just shown her something it had been keeping secret. Lily's bottom lip started to tremble. Mama, she whispered. It says my name. It does, baby, Rosa whispered back. Her own eyes were burning. It's for me. Rosa looked at Damien. He was watching Lily with an expression on his face that she didn't think he was aware of, open and soft and entirely unguarded. It's for you, Damien said to Lily gently. I made it for you, so you can come here with your mama. Lily looked at the sign. She looked at the yellow walls. She looked at the mural with the butterflies and the tree with the swing. She looked at the little table with the two little chairs and the bookshelf full of books and the rug that looked like clouds. And then Lily, who was 3 years old and had not yet learned to hold things in, burst into tears. Not scared tears. Not hurt tears. The other kind, the kind that come when something is too beautiful and too much and too good, and your whole small heart can't hold it all without spilling over. Happy tears. The purest kind. The kind that children cry before they learn to be embarrassed by feeling things fully. Hey, Damien said immediately, going down to one knee so he was at her level, his voice soft with alarm. Hey, it's okay. You don't have to. I like it, Lily sobbed, loudly and earnestly. I like it so much. Damien blinked. He stared at this 3-year-old girl crying her heart out over a room he had built for her, and something crossed his face that Rosa would think about later, in the quiet moments, something that looked like a man remembering that he was a person, that the world contained things that were worth this, that all the years of work and deals and strategy had been pointed, maybe, towards something like this moment without him ever knowing it. Rosa was crying too. She didn't try to stop it. She held Lily and let her daughter cry her happy tears, the kind that are actually thank yous and I can't believe this and I feel so much, all at once. And she looked at Damien over Lily's head and tried to say something with her eyes because her voice wasn't available. He seemed to understand. Lily pulled back and looked at him with her whole face wet and her eyes bright. Did you do the butterflies? She asked, pointing at the mural. An artist did those, he said. I told her what you might like. How did you know what I like? Your mama told me some things, he said. And I guessed the rest. Lily studied him with a frank assessment that only 3-year-olds use freely. You guessed good, she told him. He laughed. The real kind, the kind that comes from somewhere it matters. Lily wiggled down out of Rosa's arms and went into the room, padding across the cloud rug in her small shoes, turning in a slow circle to see everything. She trailed her fingers along the bookshelf. She crouched down and looked at the dollhouse. She walked to the window. There was a window seat there with yellow cushions and climbed up on it and looked out at the winter garden below. Mama, she said from the window seat, very seriously, I want to live here. Rosa laughed through her tears. You don't live here, Mija. You visit here. With me. Every day. Rosa looked at Damien, he said. Lily accepted this with a nod, like it was decided, and went back to examining the books. Rosa turned away slightly to collect herself. She pressed her fingers to her eyes. She breathed. She was not a person who fell apart, but she was also a person who had been holding so much for so long that having someone take a piece of it, quietly, without fanfare, without asking for anything back, hit her somewhere undefended. Thank you, she said, when she could say it. She turned back to face him. I don't know how to. I can't say it big enough. You don't have to, he said. He looked almost relieved, like he had been waiting to see if it was okay, and now he knew it was. The hospital bill, she said quietly, carefully. Someone paid it. Anonymously. Through a foundation. She looked at him. Was that you? A pause. You weren't supposed to be able to trace that. I didn't trace it, she said. I just know you. He held her gaze. Yes, he said. That was me. She nodded slowly, pressing her lips together. I don't want you to feel like you owe me, he said. It was the same thing he'd said at the door. I want to be clear about that. I know, she said. And I don't. That's not what I feel. What do you feel? She thought about it honestly. Like someone saw us, she said. Like someone actually looked and saw us. Me and Lily. And that doesn't happen very often. It means more than the money. It means more than the room. It's the seeing that matters. Damien was quiet for a moment. I looked up once, And you were standing in my hallway trying not to cry and still doing your job, he said. And I realized I had been walking past you every day and not seeing you. That bothered me. It should have bothered me sooner. Most people don't see people like me, she said simply.
I know, he said.
I was one of those people. I'm not proud of it. From across the room, Lily said, I found Gerald. They both looked. She had found a stuffed elephant, brown, soft, with a friendly face, tucked between two books on the shelf. That one's for you, Damien said. For here. So your Gerald doesn't have to travel. Lily looked at her stuffed elephant at home that lived in her backpack. She looked at this new elephant on the shelf. His name is Gerald too, she said, with total certainty, and tucked it under her arm. Rosa laughed. And this time the laugh was free and clean and full of something she hadn't felt in a long time. That was the day the big quiet house started being loud. Not loud in a bad way. Loud in the way that means someone small is running down a hallway. Loud in the way that means someone is laughing in a room that was full of boxes. Loud in the way that means something frozen has thawed, and a man who had been very good at being alone has discovered that being alone was, perhaps, only something he had practiced because he hadn't yet met the right people. Rosa brought Lily every morning. Lily decorated her room slowly. Drawings she made at the little table that Rosa pinned to a corkboard Damien quietly had installed. A painted rock she found in the garden. A paper crown she made and placed on Gerald II's head. Damien learned what Paschetti meant. He learned that yellow was Lily's favorite color every day except the days it was blue or red or once, memorably, the color of Gerald's ear, the soft one. That specific color right there. He learned that Lily gave hugs without warning and that she asked questions continuously and that she had an opinion about everything and stated it with the confidence of someone who had never once second-guessed herself. He learned very slowly and without entirely meaning to what it felt like to come home to a house that had people in it. To hear a small voice somewhere in the building. To find a drawing on the kitchen counter with his name spelled Damie and a picture of what appeared to be a very tall man and a very small girl and an elephant. He put it on his refrigerator. His empty refrigerator that had never had anything on it. He looked at it every morning. Rosa, watching all of this happen gradually and tenderly, understood something she hadn't fully expected to understand. That kindness is a door, and when one person opens it, sometimes both people get to walk through. The maid's toddler had cried happy tears on the morning the world showed her that she was seen, that she was loved by someone who had no reason to love her except that he chose to. And in doing that, in building a yellow room and paying a bill and writing 4 honest sentences, a billionaire who lived in a house full of quiet had found something he hadn't known he was missing. People. Real ones. A woman who took care of things like they mattered, because to her, everything did. And a little girl who cried when something was too beautiful and loved an elephant named Gerald, and thought being tall was notable and being yellow was a personality. He had everything the world said a person should want. And then, finally, he had something the world couldn't put a price on. Some things aren't about money. They're about looking up, paying attention, seeing someone, and deciding that what you do next you do because it's right, because they matter, because we all do.